Hi, Junior Ross from the Energy Industry Times. Quick question for you, Fatih. You showed a graph which showed the picture out to 2035 and the demand growth for unconventional gas, but that was for energy demand. How does the picture look for power generation?
And next.
Yeah, thanks. Your graph showing...
Sorry, your name, please.
Nick Coleman from Argus. Yeah. Your graph showing the increase in European imports if these golden rules are not applied. The increase proportionally was not very great, but you're saying that the import spending would be drastically increased. I was just wondering if you could explain that, especially given that some importers are now managing to start to decouple the gas price from oil prices. And maybe just as a second question, a bit more general one, how do you, at the moment around the globe, gas prices are quite strongly differentiated around between regions, as you know. So do you see those stark differences in prices according to the region of the globe you're looking at? Do you see that changing? Do you see the prices becoming more integrated globally? Thank you.
Arthur Max from EnergyWire. I wonder if you could go over some of the projections that you've been making over the last few years and how they have changed as a result of the gas revolution in the last couple of years, especially in regards to renewable energies, and whether it is going to affect, you believe, the debate in Japan and elsewhere about the nuclear industry.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the reverse order, perhaps. When we look at our projections, we see that they are more or less stable. We have more and more renewables coming in our projections for our base case scenario, and more natural gas for two different reasons. For renewables, more and more government policies are put in place, and if there is a government policy put in place, we assume that the governments will not change their policies, their support policies. It can be in terms of subsidies, it can be through different pricing mechanisms. For natural gas, why we are increasing the natural gas growth is mainly as a result of economics. Natural gas is becoming cheaper, and as a result of that, we see that the natural gas is penetrating the market more, and especially at the cost of oil in the electricity generation, and at the same time nuclear power, and also in some cases for coal. So we are seeing improvement for the gas and renewables. Now, second question about the prices. We think, first of all, I will also reverse your question coming from the situation today to the future. Today we see three different price trajectories: $2.50 in US, around $10 in Europe, and about the latest contact I heard in Asia Pacific is about $17. So two different trajectories, and this is, of course, something very unique when you look at the history of the gas markets, and which would mean that the major advantage for the North American consumers and manufacturers vis-a-vis their competitors in the other regions. And this also opens doors, if they stay so, for move of natural gas from North America to other destinations if the price differences stay so, because the transportation costs would not make a major change in this equation. In our work, we have thought that the even in a golden rules case, the price levels of United States are not sustainable. I think we have assumed in the next few years it should come about $5.4 per MBTU in order to provide an incentive for the investments, new investments in the United States, and in a context where there is a lot of domestic production coming from the United States and maybe even exporting, China imports becoming much less as they are going to increase their production in our golden rules case. We think that there will be a downward pressure on the prices. Therefore, the importers will benefit from that. So the importers will benefit from two ways. One, because of the less volumes to be imported as they produce at home, such as Europe. Second, since the price levels will be lower, the import will go down. Price levels will be lower compared to what it otherwise would have been, such as the low unconventional case, where the share of Russia and the other the exporters will be much more stronger, and the oil indexation will be much more pronounced. We think in a golden rules case there will be a pressure on the oil indexation, and there need to be lots of new creative alternatives to be found oil indexation in that context. Finally, in terms of the gas, the share of gas is increasing significantly in the power generation, mainly taking over coal, about 22% today to around 24% in the year 2035, and the coal is going to decline significantly, mainly as a result of the cheaper availability of gas. And we shouldn't, talking about again a climate change point of view, we shouldn't forget that if we build coal-fired power plants, several coal-fired power plants in the next years to come, they will help and knowing that the lifetime is more than 40 years in many cases, it helps to look in our energy system in that case. Yes.
Next group of questions, maybe we'll do here James and, is it Victor? Oleg, sorry.
Hi, my question is for Dr. Birol. You talked about all the major changes in the sort of importer-exporter relationships at the moment and the weakening of the market share of some of the major exporters now. Is it likely that shale oil could do a similar thing to the global trade in oil, do you think? Is it, I mean, I realize it's earlier in the evolution of the industry, but I'd just like to hear something about that.
Oleg Vukmanovich from Reuters. I just wanted to ask what has been the reaction of specific shale producers, companies, to your estimate of a 7% rise in costs, and if you can say anything of your predictions by 2020 or 2035. What kind of cut in emissions we'll see as a result of the uptake of shale and renewables, if you have anything on that. Thank you.
And one more question from that area of the room. Yes, sir, the red tie.
Thank you. My name is Peter Keenan from the Economist Intelligence Unit. I just have a question about the situation in the EU and shale gas. If you foresee any move towards Europe-wide regulations for shale gas development among the EU member states, or do you think it'll be left up to the countries themselves?
You want to take the third one? Okay, if I can start about the shale oil. One of the gentlemen, our colleagues, asked me, what did we change, what are we changing in our projections recently. I gave an example of renewables and natural gas. I would expect that one of the things we will change for the next World Energy Outlook would be higher production from light tight oil and shale oil in the next years to come. But it will be very premature to see that the shale oil and the light tight oil will have the similar impact that the shale gas have today. But I think it will, especially light tight oil in the United States, would help U.S. to go one step forward in terms of their energy independence efforts. And the light tight oil in 2020, we think, will reach about 2 million barrels per day. The reaction to the 7%, we will find out this afternoon, I guess. So what the reaction is, we don't know yet. But I can tell you that there are many scientists, research institutes, companies that we have consulted throughout this process. Many companies, and I think the 7% number we came up with was not very different than their numbers. And one final issue here, that in fact our main concern is the point of departure is the protecting the interests of the local communities, and the others do follow that very concern. Perhaps for the final question, EU and the shale gas, I may turn to our Executive Director.
Thank you very much, Fatih. Well, when we look into shale gas and the European position, I think there are a number of reasons why it is important for Europe to have a development in shale gas. Europe has the second largest regional gas market in the world, growing dependence on imports. It has well-established pipeline storage networks and relatively high natural gas prices. So these are four elements. They are in favor for Europe to develop their unconventional gas resources. On the other hand, there are also some above-ground factors that can really impede rapid growth, and the most important of them, of course, is the high population density. That's in general. Now, when we look into the different countries in Europe, well, they are completely different. Of course, you know that. The fuel mix is being decided on a national level, and this varies very much country by country. And when I take just two countries in Europe, Poland and France, where in France there is a kind of a ban on shale gas, and in Poland it's really very enthusiastic to promote shale gas. It has to do with their different position. It has to do with their import dependency. And so I really do hope that when it comes down to Europe, that the countries in Europe will follow the 7 rules, the 7 golden rules for the development of unconventional gas, and that's exactly the reason why we are installing this high-level platform. And given the reality in Europe as it is, I think EU regulations on EU scale, well, that will be very difficult.
Greg, I forgot one question about the CO2 emissions that I think our colleagues from Reuters asked. Today, CO2 emissions are about 31.6 gigaton, and in 2035, in our golden rules case, it will come to 37 gigaton, and it will still increase. And in a low unconventional case, it will be 1.3% higher than the golden rules case, mainly using more coal. But as I said, in both cases, we are far from the 2 degrees trajectory. They are in line with the 3.5 degrees trajectory, which is again in line with the 650 ppm trajectory.
Because of time constraints, we'll probably have to make this the last group of questions. So let's do one there, David. In the back, the woman in white, and one of the other in the back there.
Hello, David Strawn reporting for Newsbase. Fatih, just a few quick points. Could you tell us a bit more about price? Can you tell us what you think the prices are going to be in 2035 in the high and low cases for unconventional? I just wonder about this assumption that the that shale gas development depends on the golden rules being obeyed. I just wonder whether or not China, which is obviously very large in your analysis, might get on with this in any case and without obeying the golden rules, whether this can happen in any case, in which case, what would that mean? CO2 intensity, last year when you released your report, I think you were quite dismissive of the work of Cornell. You didn't rate that very highly, but I wonder, because you've now, does the fact that you're now advising green completions and so forth suggest that, have you changed your view on the carbon intensity? And the last, I suppose the biggest point is that, isn't this, the carbon intensity of the gas actually sort of beside the point? Isn't that what your report shows? But doesn't what you're saying today completely jar with your most recent warnings about the closing of the window on 2 degrees? Isn't the real problem here is just the size of the resource? And wouldn't the real golden rule have been to say unconventional gas, don't burn it?
Okay, David has always 3 questions, by the way. So
that was 4.
Yeah, 4. Okay.
Emily Beeman from the Press Association. My question follows on from the previous gentleman's. Is there any way that the golden age of gas can be compatible with tackling climate change to keep emissions below 2 degrees C? And if so, what do we need to do?
Oh, hi, Kwok Wan, Petroleum Economist. I'm just wondering about unconventional oil versus unconventional gas. We're seeing producers in the US go after unconventional oil because gas prices are so low. I'm just wondering, is there this kind of competition between oil and gas producers, and may producers going after unconventional oil take the momentum out of this golden age of gas?
Okay, if I can start slowly. In terms of prices, David, your list of questions, we assume that in the United States it will be in 2035 around $7, in Europe $10.8, and Japan $12.6. And I don't want to go one by one, but in the low unconventional case, they are more or less 30% higher the prices. So this is, you can find those in our work. For China, the key issue for China is the availability of water, which is at the heart of our golden rules, the water management issue. But in addition to that, as we have noted in our book, we would like to see, which is a continuing theme of the World Energy Outlook, the regulated prices for consumers of gas need to be reformed in China. And we see some developments there and some pilot projects to reform the prices, to be higher prices, to give incentives to the investors. Are we, why it is a golden rules for golden age of gas, even though we don't reach the 2 degrees? Very simple. This is not a golden age for climate change book. This is a golden age for gas book. Golden age of gas doesn't mean that for the others, this is definitely and exclusively a good news, a golden news. This is for gas. So, and we are very clear, and I repeated it at least 5 times, following the perhaps 2 or 3 times that our executive director said that this will not alone bring us to a 2 degrees trajectory, and governments need to insist on efficiency, the low technology, renewable policies. Now, this is, and the door, and we have said, in fact, last week, that with the 2011 CO2 emissions increase, that the door to 2 degrees is about to close now, and we are about to lock in our energy future, which is definitely devastating. So, is there any way to go with gas, we come to 2 degrees? It is not obvious, but using gas together with carbon capture and storage may help to reduce the emissions there. This is definitely something which should be helpful and something that we put a lot of emphasis on. If I am not wrong, Maria, you were in Norway recently, opening of a ceremony, participating meeting with the Norwegian minister and the CCS plant. When it comes to the emissions from the extraction and production of shale gas, as I said, there is a specific rule we have to target zero venting and minimal flaring. And this can be done. This can be done with some cost, with some investments, with a good payback. And our analysis show that if it is done in a way that we suggest, the emissions would be only 3% higher than the conventional gas. But if it is done, zero venting and minimal flaring. Final question, unconventional oil and unconventional gas. I think we also think that the current high oil prices, in addition to other effects, give a lead to higher cost production. Unconventional oil is one of them. Not only in Canada, but I mentioned the light tight oil in the United States. And the higher the prices are, with the growing energy demand, we see more chances for unconventional oil. Having said that, unconventional oil has also a strong environmental footprint compared to the conventional oil, but this would again will not be a game changer, especially in a context where there are no international legally binding climate change agreements. So we expect therefore the growth of unconventional oil too in many regions. So I would perhaps stop here.
Well, I would like to add two small comments, one on the position of China. And yes, I agree, public acceptance is likely to be of lesser influence in China at this moment. But we are looking for forward 25 years. And we have seen in the past 4 years, in the past 5 years, how the situation in China has been changing. How important how shall I put it, the awareness of the environment is. We see now an enormous growth in wind industry, in wind farms, and in solar industry, solar electricity in China. That hasn't been happening before 4 or 5 years ago. So the public sensitivity to economical and environmental issues, especially social issues, is to grow. My second remark is on the report itself. Yes, it's a report on gas. It's not a report on renewables. But I promise you, there will be a report on renewables later this year. It will be on the renewables as a market. But the most important thing is that gas has to replace coal. And the second thing is, if we really want to turn it into a success, and we compare the low unconventional case with the golden rules, if you have the low unconventional case, what Fatih said, what about flaring? What about venting? It's these things that have to be tackled, and we can do it together. But then we have to have these golden rules for gas. Otherwise, we will go on the same path as usual. Last thing about the renewables. We can't do without renewables. They are indispensable. And that means that policy measures by governments for renewables have to be there for years to come, because they are not always as cost effective as they should be. This is a matter of development. Energy efficiency, deploying low-carbon energy sources, broad application of low-carbon tools, low-carbon technology. These are the things, together with gas as a substitute for coal, will really make a difference.
Thanks very much. That brings us to the conclusion of our press conference. Let me just mention that tomorrow we'll look forward to seeing some of you again at the Department